Action.
So we have Sam here, who's a licensed LSW, who was there from the beginning of the coronavirus, the essential worker. And I mean, it must have been really tough at the beginning. You didn't even know what you could expect. Am I right about that?
Yeah, it was kind of confusing because all of a sudden, we were going from working 8-hour days to we got a call stating we're going to have a meeting to, separate the hours because the state had no idea what was going on either. Our bosses were kind of just updating us as they were getting updated from their, state Medicaid, like the people who are also our funding sources. So it was kind of confusing.
And it must have been scary. Here you are, you're dealing with people that have mental health issues, and this is like one of the most extreme mental health times that we could deal with. People would have the issues. Now we were getting more triggers than ever before. I mean, you must have more patients wanting to see you, or it must have been really traumatic for you, I mean, as a person, to deal with that.
I think a lot of it comes from kind of the skills that I use with my clients, I actually use on myself as well. So when I work with clients, I don't really do things that I haven't also tried. So I think the biggest thing for me was that I tried to keep a positive mindset during all of it.
It's amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
It's like, again, nobody knew anything.
Yeah.
And people left and right that were perfectly healthy were all suddenly getting sick. And
Yeah.
it must have been really scary. I mean, really scary for you.
It was, especially because in Patterson, it's not the most sanitary place to begin with. There's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of, it's like a dangerous place to be. So the biggest thing was that, they started enforcing, we have to wear masks, and, we have someone who would come and clean the office every night, and it would be cleaned every morning. So if they didn't have a mask, the person couldn't come in, and we were kind of allowed to, if we started to feel, it's kind of like a thing, if I'm in an assessment and I feel uncomfortable, I'm allowed to, leave or ask the client to leave. But it kind of went for that as well, is that our bosses were very like, you got to make sure that you're comfortable. Like my bosses would tell me all the time, like go into a bigger room where, there's going to be more space between the two of you, so you don't have to worry so much about, if the client, because the thing with it too is that they're, a lot of them aren't, I have clients that come in and they'll wear the masks like half up, like they don't really think about it as like a collective whole. So that was it was honestly more frustrating than anything because I'm kind of just like.
But how do you keep, you're stressed out yourself, I'm sure, getting there, dealing with this whole thing. And there, sometimes people have issues that I'm sure are not quote as realistic. Mm-hmm. Some mental health issues that are more in the head. But this is real. Mm-hmm. And maybe at a sense it was more traumatic with mental health issues, but in a sense, you're dealing with those traumas. You're dealing with that pain and worry yourself, and it's almost like somebody hitting you over the head, I would imagine, making it even more real. Like you're trying to escape in a sense, I'm sure, and they're just scaring you even more. And do you getting that right at all with them repeating some of the fears they have, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I did experience a lot of fear as well. It was kind of just also when everything kind of shut down, I also made sure that I limited where I was going, who I was going with in general as well. That's why it took me a while to even come back here because, it wasn't so much like I just never knew what I was exposed to. But if I kept to dwelling on that, I wouldn't have done a lot of the stuff that I was doing during the quarantine.
Sam, I would say your faith probably helped you during this difficult time. Would that be having faith?
Yeah.
And to give you the power.
Yeah.
To feel a deeper purpose and have the strength to deal with. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, my faith, it did help. It gave me a sense of strength.
This is difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is a test of faith. I'm sure there were some people that you saw that did any people not make it, or did you hear stories that you knew people and did it affect you?
I have 2 close friends who lost family members to the virus, and there was actually at one point, I wouldn't say an outbreak, but 2 of our coworkers had gotten the virus. So basically what had happened was after we, found out that they got the virus, we all got tested. My 2 coworkers were fine.
And you got, so though, like this happened twice with you, that you had coworkers that had it. So now in your head you're thinking, could this be me?
Yeah, that was one of the.
Probably every sniffle, every cough, every itch in your face makes you think that maybe this is it.
I mean, it's still kind of like that, and even when I, like sneeze and cough and all that, I'm also like, it's not Rona, I promise. Like, I make sure that, like, I don't know, I think the biggest thing is that I have my outlets of how I handle it. I go to therapy, literally, like, singing heavy metal on the way home from work. Like, it's a good stress reliever. So I think the reason why I've kind of been able to handle it a lot differently than my clients is because I've, been working on the coping skills for years, and also because I'm in therapy myself. So experiencing something so traumatic, as hard as it is to talk about, it needs to be talked about, because then your body suppresses it and then it comes out in other ways.
Now, also, I'm sure it goes the opposite way, where a client will be talking about something that may seem a little bit small in your mind, and now you have the coronavirus going on, and I'm sure in your head once in a while you might want to say, what the hell, in different words maybe.
Yeah.
You're complaining about this, and does that happen at all?
No, because in my opinion, everyone's feelings and their experiences are valid, and especially during the quarantine, if you're experiencing something and it might seem like, if something that you're experiencing might seem different than something someone else is experiencing, they might also be hyper-focused on that because they don't want to focus on the coronavirus. So what we sometimes do as humans is we'll focus on something that's easier, quote unquote, to deal with. I have clients who, were focusing on some issue they might have been having with their significant other, or they've been, focusing more on food, using other aspects to not have to deal with the uncertainty and the fear that goes along with
They
the coronavirus.
say that the quarantine itself caused many mental health issues in the sense that it may hurt families a little bit more, drug abuse, insecurities and stuff like that built up. Did you find that happening a lot? The quarantine seemed to cause that problem as a whole?
Yeah, it's not even just with the people I work with, but people that I know as well. There's something going on outside that you have no idea what's happening. The other part of it is that you're stuck and confined into, people aren't working, people are, now having to face family issues, marital issues, whatever it might be. People who already have mental health issues, it does affect mental health, and the biggest thing is because people are used to routine, people are used to being busy, people are used to having things to do, and people are also used to not going outside and worrying that if someone sneezes, is it going to, get me sick, kill me, whatever it is. So I had noticed a lot of that. I had also noticed that, because I work in 2 areas. I work with, strictly mental health outpatient, and then I work in intensive outpatient, which is, drugs and alcohol. I noticed that some of the clients that were coming into our treatment center were actually staying clean because they couldn't leave the house. Well, you could leave the house, but they were choosing not to leave the house. So I think it's kind of however people would choose to make of it. You could use it as a reason to continue to use drugs. You could use it as a reason to, sink into your depression. There's no right way to handle a pandemic.
So people that deal with other individuals that are taking the old coronavirus to the extreme, the type of people, say you have a sister, brother, or cousin, whatever, and the person won't leave the house no matter what, and wash their hands 12 times a day, and all of a sudden they're just totally focused on it, totally in fear. How can the other person help them get better in this situation?
Honestly, being there for them in whatever way they need, and understanding that everyone is taking the coronavirus or taking it differently. You could talk with them if they want to talk about it. Sometimes if people are doing that, that just is kind of them coping with the anxiety in a way, in a situation that they don't know how to deal with, and they might just need to talk about it and break down and cry. But you can't force it,
Right.
because it's not easy to force emotions out of anybody if they're not willing to,
And on the other hand, how about if you're stressed? It's hurting you, this whole thing. Maybe there are a lot of older people alone in the house, young kids by themselves. So you got to keep young people can't socialize and stuff. How do you advise them? How do you help them out? I mean, how can a person help another person like that? Well, if you're the person suffering, what can you do?
Self-care, create yourself kind of a routine. Whether it's having FaceTime or whatever, device to use with your friends. Whether it's, not sleeping all day, but setting yourself, and it's hard to do at first, but setting yourself a time, I'm going to get up at 9, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, kind of giving yourself a little structure. Because if you have structure, if you have things to do, it kind of keeps things, quote unquote, as normal as it can.
Sam, I want to thank you. I really do. And there's not enough people doing that. Right now, you are one of the people, I guess, a lifesaver in a sense. Mental health is a really important thing. People sometimes forget about it in the physical health. But if you don't have mental health, you don't have anything in a sense. And you were there in the battleground when this whole thing broke out, and you've been there all along. So I want to thank you for what you've done, and I think it's really courageous. Thank you for being here.
I'm gonna cry.
There are the tears. There are the tears. You did it, bud. You did it. You got her to cry.
Oh my gosh, I was about to start crying. I was like, don't do that.